you'll have to excuse any of the lawnmower noises you might hear outside. It is spring going into early summer, and there is nothing that I can do about that. Today I want to discuss a subject that a lot of people tend to shy away from. I've kind of discussed it in other vlogs, but I haven't gotten quite into this depth with it, and that is death and how death affects the survivors. And that is death and how death affects its living survivors. I've experienced a lot of death in my lifetime. I'm pushing 30, so as you can imagine, I've lost a lot of pets and I've lost a lot of human beings in my life. Some I saw coming, some of them were complete surprises. No matter what, though, I noticed that the older you get, the more you come to terms with the fact that you're going to be seeing more and more death throughout your lifetime. And even though you come to terms with it, it never gets any easier to watch the people in your life fade away onto a plane where you can no longer really speak with them. And one of the hardest parts of losing someone is not just the fact that they're gone, but also the way that people around you react to it. And that's what I want to really get into depth with today. As always, I'll be using examples from my life in order to make this make more sense for you. Everyone reacts differently to death. No two people at a funeral are going to be behaving in the same way or feeling the same thing. And I think that a lot of us forget about that after we lose somebody. When someone dies, it does not just affect one person. It affects everyone that they were close to in some way or another. And whether you knew this person for 10 years or 10 months, time has little to do with who's going to feel the effects of death the hardest. It has more to do with how close your spirits were to one another. This is something that I tend to struggle with every time someone dies. I will be, the friend of a person, or, a relative, but not in their immediate family. And the person will die. I will have an extremely difficult time with it. I never go into denial, but I will get really quiet. I don't really want anyone near me after someone dies. I just need to deal with it on my own. I am very silent, and I don't really make eye contact with people at the funerals because I find it difficult, because I know everyone is going to be talking about this person that I don't get to see anymore. And something that I've heard at just about every funeral I've gone to is, you're sad, but think of their mother, or think of their child, or think of their spouse. It's a lot worse for them. I don't like it when people say things like this. I find it very insensitive, because obviously me or anyone else displaying grief for the loss of this person does not mean that we think our grief is more severe than someone else's. And on top of that, honestly, maybe I am grieving worse than their spouse. Maybe I am taking it harder than someone in their immediate family. You have no way to know, because you are not inside my head. You don't know what that death is doing to me. An example would be if I lost my best friend. My best friend and I have been very, very close for a very, very long time. We talk to each other every single day. We do whatever we can to see each other every year, even though we're from different countries. And we always say that we have a love for each other that you can't describe or explain. It transcends friendship. It transcends family. It's something that touches very few people in this world, and we're so thankful that we've been given a chance to feel this kind of love for each other, and we can't imagine a world without the other one in it. Her girlfriend has even said to me on multiple occasions, if my best friend ever died before I did, she knows I would have a harder time with it than the girlfriend would. It would hurt me a lot worse because of what we have. And that doesn't mean that I'm trying to trivialize how her girlfriend would feel, because obviously she'd be struggling with it in her own way, but it would be more severe for me because of what we have together. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like the death of my father one day could affect his sister worse than it affects me, because both of us have literally spent our entire lives with him since we're both younger than him, but she has seen him in a different way than I have as his child versus his sister. It might strike her harder. As I mentioned before, it's very insensitive to say, oh, but think of this person, because you are trivializing that person's suffering, and on top of that, you're basically telling them they have no right to be grieving the way that they are because they weren't as close to the person who has died as someone else. The other thing I want to talk about is the way people deal with death, especially at funerals. Funerals are crazy town. Nobody has a grip on themselves. You aren't going to see anyone the way you usually see them because everyone's just losing their minds from grief. They can't control themselves. And one of the strangest but saddest things I ever witnessed was, I know a lady, I'm going to call her Carolyn. Carolyn has always been probably the strongest woman I've ever known in my life. She will literally threaten you with a shotgun on her front porch if you come around and try to hurt her child. She has no problem with shying away from confrontation if she needs to confront someone. She is a fearless woman. And unfortunately, she lost her son very suddenly, very unexpectedly. I'm not going to go into detail on how, because it's frankly nobody's business. But none of us saw it coming. It just, the day before he was fine, and then he was just gone. And she lost it. She really lost it. I went to the funeral, and she refused to leave her son's side the entire time. She could barely speak to anyone. As soon as, I'm not sure what the clergyman's title was, but as soon as the religious official entered the room and began to officiate the funeral rites and everything, she was sobbing so loudly you could hear her through the room and could barely breathe. And as soon as the funeral was finished and everyone left and got in their cars and started processing to the cemetery, she threw herself onto the coffin, screaming, "No, I don't want to go, I don't want to leave him." And we all had to literally pry this woman off of her dead son to get her out. And you can imagine